everyone to Bridges Live with Dr. Paul, and we have Carole Copeland Thomas that's going to be speaking with us today, and I'd like to give everyone here a warm welcome to Miss Carole. Hi, Miss Carole. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, Paul. Thank you very much for having me on on your show.
Because you have a show too.
That's right. But I'm glad to be on your show, particularly since you have great followers and listeners on Facebook and Instagram and elsewhere.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, so many people don't know who each other are. Everybody knows I'm Dr. Paul, and we got Bridges Live, and we like to come on. And we can always catch the podcast on iHeart and iTunes Radio, and you can always catch me on drpaulholisticscience.com. And, of course, I love my emails that I get throughout the week, and my sponsors. I like to thank my sponsors who help me put on the show, because without them, we can only do so much. But it's about our guests, it's about our information, it's about understanding, and it's about putting things into an action. And that's why I have Miss Carole on. Miss Carole, so give us a little bit of a backdrop of what you are, who you are, and what you've been doing.
Well, thank you, Dr. Paul. I'm a social entrepreneur, and I position myself that way because I communicate and disseminate information that focuses on diversity or global diversity, multiculturalism, and inclusion on different platforms. So that's why we were joking earlier. I have a radio program, getting ready to start a podcast again. So I know how important social media is to our marketplaces.
Yeah.
So that is an important component. But I also have face-to-face clients. I just signed a contract with MIT to do some work with them. That's the Massachusetts Institute of Technology here in the greater Boston area. I work with large and small organizations to help them frame their ideas and their suggestions and their concepts related to diversity, multiculturalism, and inclusion. I also have a members-only organization called the Multicultural Symposium Series, and that group not only has an online face-to-face platform, but it also puts on events. So we are having our 13th conference next week called the Multicultural Conference at Massachusetts College of Art and Design. So I look at it, I spin it, I eat, sleep, and drink diversity, multiculturalism, and it's needed more than ever. And I've been doing this for 32 years.
So you just started is really what you're saying. You started with, you must have just kicked it over, like, hey, let's do
so. Yeah, I just finished reading the manual. And I have my learner's permit.
Right, and I'm driving down the road. It's full steam ahead. So
right.
I have to get something out of the way because I know people know I'm from New York, and I'm also a Yankee fan. And being in Boston, I just got to clear my skull because there's no way around it. It's got to come out. Are you a Sox fan or what?
I am a native Detroiter who used to be a Tigers fan, who used to be a Philadelphia Phillies fan when I lived there. And since I've been here for over 30 years, I am definitely a Sox fan.
Oh!
And the Boston Red Sox are my sponsors, so they may be listening to this, so yes, I am a Sox fan.
Oh! Well, we can still have a relationship, I understand.
Yeah, agree to disagree.
So I know I had to get that out of the way, but God bless you, Carole, for coming on to Bridges Live, and thank you for coming on. And again, people can catch the podcast here on iHeart and iTunes Radio. You can also catch the live show now, and you can also catch the recording of the video on my YouTube channel. When we talk about diversity, let's clear that up. Again, information. What is diversity, inclusion, look like to the person who doesn't know what that means?
Yeah, that's a great point. I am now doing my basic training series, and I am putting out simple 2 or 3 minute videos on LinkedIn, Facebook, sometimes Instagram, and within my marketplace, just answering these questions, because a lot of people have these questions. So let me take the first one first. Diversity is the understanding, appreciating, and ultimately managing similarities and differences at the same time. What that says is that it is an expectation that we look at our differences as we look at our similarities, so that ultimately we can collaborate in a more proactive manner.
Right.
So lots of times people get hung up on the differences without looking at the similarities. You can't do that. You have to look at both, but you can't ignore the differences and just focus on kumbaya and all the similarities. So you have to look at both, which sometimes drives tension before resolution takes place. So that's diversity, and there are a lot of categories with that.
So
multiculturalism deals with the intersection of many cultures in our society. And it really is a bigger concept than diversity, and one that is more widely respected in different parts of the world. So, you are a New Yorker, I live in Boston. So here in the U.S., people will understand at least what diversity is, or at least have some kind of
an idea,
concept of what it is. But if you are in Kenya or India, where I travel, the term diversity may not resonate as strongly as it does here. Multiculturalism has a better, stronger ring to it because it's culture-based.
Now, that's a lot.
That's why I did those videos on this.
Right. Now, and I totally get it, because my little niche of things is I do emotional sciences. So about what people are feeling and how it affects your body on a cellular level, and how it how you can heal your body with that information. There is a lot of you have written something about tension, and that we are in a tense situation, and that we keep pushing ourselves into this fear-based tense situation. And for me, I'm such a neuroscience guy and I understand about the brain and all. How is this education helping our job markets and our education markets? Because that's where it seems like it's needed most, isn't it?
Oh, very much. It's needed everywhere, but particularly on the job. I just, a few weeks ago, presented my TEDx talk.
That's right.
And yes, thank you. And boy, the work that goes into that 18-minute period of time
is
intense, really intense, but great organizers. In fact, the license holder, I'm going to give her high props, the license holder, Dr. Panji Johnson, who organized, she has her team, but she was the principal organizer with TEDx Waltham. She is probably the only woman of color, at least in our region, who is an official license holder for TEDx. So that says an awful lot. So I wanted to do my best for her because of her belief in me and belief in the work that she's doing, not only at AstraZeneca, where she works, and they were the principal sponsor, but where she wants to have this TEDx to go. So I talked a lot about fear, and that was my main message, facing fear.
Yes.
And I talked a lot about weaponized fear. So this is what's going on in the society, in the workplace now. You have individuals who are really interested and eager to learn about these topics, and they really want to do well on the job, and they want to interface a lot with their colleagues. And then you have individuals where they are of the belief that diversity is polarizing, it's negative, and they don't want anything to do with it.
Wow.
All in the same space.
Wow.
And then you have instigators who are using fear and fear tactics and misinformation. This is what I talked about in my TEDx. Mm-hmm. And they are using that to drive a wedge between people who could honestly learn more about D&I work and learn how it interfaces with them on the job, along with people who are very receptive. But when you have a lot of this, and that creates tension. So when you have the energetic forces that are energetic from a negative point of view, and they're driving a wedge between people for the sake of anarchy or disruption alone, that's where the tension can mount, and where people will clamp down and the status quo becomes their benchmark.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, when we talk about fear, we know fear holds a grip on us. And when you said weaponize it, man, that really hit hard on me, because I understand how the propaganda is the best way I could put it, and how the media is using fear to keep a hold on said people. Mm-hmm. Is there a reason why you think that is being done? You may not have the reason of a purpose, but what's your idea why it's being done?
Well, from a social and a political perspective, when you look at the United States and demographically how it is changing everywhere, I mean, the demographics in terms of the number of people of color, you could look at a city like Boston that used to be predominantly white, and now it is over 50% of the people who live in the city of Boston are non-white, and it's been that way for a couple of years now. So when you see the seat changes, particularly in coastal towns like New York and Boston and Los Angeles and Seattle and other coastal towns, but then towns, I've worked in a small town called Crete, Nebraska, and there's a university there. Doane University is there. Doane College is there. It's in Crete, Nebraska, and it's probably an hour from Lincoln, Nebraska.
I know where you are because I used to live in North Dakota, and and we used to go. I used to take a lacrosse team down to Lincoln, Nebraska. So you have to you pass through all that. So that's funny. It is a small town.
Yeah, it's a small town. But check this out, Dr. Paul. They have a growing number of Hispanic residents who are moving in the town. Why? Because they have a major meat manufacturing facility.
South Dakota, too.
And not only that, some of the jobs require precise carving skills. So they have actually brought in people from Japan to work at this company. So you've got you have international people coming in, living in this community, demographically changing the community in an amazing way. There used to be a lot of Europeans, Eastern Europeans who are there, mixing with people from Mexico, Guatemala, Japan, etc. in Crete, Nebraska. So the demographic changes are happening everywhere, wherever you happen to be. That brings on the weaponized fear with people who are mainstay, status quo driven. They don't want to see change at all, and they see what's happening in their towns and their communities, and they become very afraid. And so you have individuals politically who will take advantage of that fear and just really shape it into what they want it to be.
You know, I hope people in Bridges Live, when they hear this, see this, and replay this, for myself, I'm taking notes, and I thank Ms. Carole for talking to us on Bridges Live here with Dr. Paul. But this is about information, of understanding that this is what's going on. This is what's happening. It's not going to happen. It is happening. Right? It is happening in your job base. It is happening in your community. It's happening. Now, what is some of the things that we could help with to help de-weaponize the situation, is the best way I could put it?
Before I answer that question, let me just say that it's not just here in the United States. I've used U.S. examples.
Yes.
But the weaponized fear, the us against them, they're moving in our territory, literally is a worldwide phenomenon. Brexit, which Britain is going through right now. Are they going to get an extension? Are they not going to get an extension? Are they going to move out of the European Union? I was just in England last month, so you see it happening there. You see it happening in some of the other European countries. You see it happening in Brazil. You see it happening where a lot of autocratic leaders are in power, and they immediately attack the media. So there are patterns that are taking place that are just not happening here in the United States, but they're happening elsewhere. And the criteria and the symptoms and the patterns are very similar, oftentimes involving outside people who are targeted as the people who are taking over whatever or coming and encroaching on the space of those who occupied it beforehand, and it's used against them. So it is a worldwide phenomenon. So to answer your question, what do you do? I mean, it's not one answer.
No,
it's a number of answers.
Yeah.
One is that people have to recognize, as you said, is that we have work to do.
We have work. we got to put our work boots on.
Yeah, we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
And in the case of racial issues, we are not post-racial. We never have been post-racial here in the U.S. So recognizing what some of the issues are, that's base one. That's the first place. Then you have to have courageous conversations. You have to, if you're in a leadership position, then you have to look at the group that you're working with, the organization that you're in, and then you have to say, is my organization best representing diversity, multiculturalism in a proactive manner so that the lowest positioned person in the organization feels as valued in the organization as the CEO, the executive CEO, or whatever.
Carole, I mean, I don't want to cut you off, but they are not asking that question in that boardroom, in that closed doors. They'll answer it on camera and say yes. They'll answer in the letter and they'll say yes. But when it comes to that closed door, they're saying, hell no.
Yeah, well, there was an article, Dr. Paul, that was printed maybe 2 weeks ago in Time magazine, and it was a little sobering because it talked about the problems and the failures of diversity, particularly diversity in the workplace. One of the statistics it talked about was that in the grand scheme of things, even though collectively lots of money has been spent on D&I work, in organizations large and small, and I have a caveat with that. But the fact that when it comes to prioritization, diversity is still low on the level of priorities within organizations.
What's one of the high ones that's on their level of the conversation? We know, diversity is on the low scale. What's one on the high side that you know of?
Clearly revenues and profits.
Yeah.
And anything that is going to drive revenues or profits, and if it's a publicly traded company, then they're looking at quarterly profits. So that's where their interest is, and we have not yet made the connection between diversity
and money.
And money, right?
Yeah. And money.
and once we make that, and people personalize and realize that diversity is a bottom line business issue, then it'll be a sea change for a lot of companies.
Most people spend money at places or work better at a place that with people that look like them or who care about who they are, not what they can also just produce. It seems like it's simple mathematics or it's a simple concept, but yet it's still this systematic thing that keep us broken up between us and them, we and you. It's these separations, and again, we'll use the word back to that weaponized fear, is using that just to keep us turned against ourselves and turned against each other. So
right. Yeah, and let me tell you another thing that I find very troubling. When organizations, you read these kind of articles and they throw aggregate numbers at you, billions of dollars spent on diversity programs, et cetera, and some organizations have spent a fair amount of money. What I find far too often our diversity programs are underfunded. And if you have, let's say, a chief diversity officer, that person will probably have either no staff or a very small staff, and that person may or may not report to the CEO. In many cases, does not report to the CEO. Or if there's not a CDO in place and they're dealing with consultants, many times these organizations will triumphantly look at a lofty goal that they want to achieve by bringing in a consultant to do important work, very complex work, and they'll throw a very small budget out there where you can't possibly complete the assignments or do anything that is sustainable without having a budget that matches what the expectations are.
That it's, you know, again, a lot of people just don't know that these things are fought against, and there are people like you who are working to make it more, well, I'm going to say not mainstream, but proactive.
Part of the infrastructure.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is mainstream, but more importantly, it's part of the infrastructure of society, of any organization, where you don't think twice about it. It just is.
Miss Carole, your camera froze up just a little bit. I know we're watching you, but your camera froze up. We can hear you fine. Just your camera froze. But
can you see me now?
Yeah, there you go. You're back.
Okay. All right.
So you're in companies. You're teaching them. You're helping them. You're cracking this nut wide open.
Mm-hmm.
You're giving them these modules, these lessons, because like when I go into different corporations and speak about, people ask me, say, Dr. Paul, why do you think my company needs emotional intelligence? I said, well, let's look at it this way. If you don't understand who you're working with and how to relate to them, you're always going to be at a contentious spirit. You're always going to be fighting against, like, I never said it that way, and I didn't mean it that way, and I didn't understand what you were talking about. So our languages are completely, totally different. They're like, well, and then I've actually been in talk to the CEO. He says, well, I don't need to know my employees' language. They just need to understand what I want from them. And I was just like, that's not going to, yeah. I'm like,
his way or the highway.
Yeah, right.
That's a good old command and control guy.
And I said, it's not going to work too long, especially if you're going to hire people who really, frankly, at a low-income rate, and you're only going to get mostly minorities. And if in this turnover, once you keep the turnover rate, we know if you have to train your employees every, 6-7 months to new employees, you're wasting money.
Right. So very much so. And also, diversity deals with millennials. So if you have a command and control leader like that, and that's the message coming from the top, and you have some real sharp millennials who are coming in, 25-year-olds, 30-year-olds, et cetera, and they want they want a stake in the game, but they see how things are being played at the top. They're not going to stay. They're going to move on. They'll say, okay, I'll put my time in, and then I'm out. So again, that creates the turnover concepts. So, then you have age issues because you've got a leader at the top who is a status quo guy or girl.
This time is flying by so fast, and I want to get a couple things in. If people want to read more of your books and your articles, where can they get a hold of you? Let's get that in before you have to take out of here pretty quick. So let's get that in.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. You can simply go to CaroleCopelandThomas.com. That's my name, Carole, Copeland, Copeland, Thomas, Thomas, all together, .com. And that'll take you to my Multicultural Symposium Series website. It'll give you information about my keynote speaking activities and all the other things that I do in this field.
And so we need this multicultural things in our school system. They shied away from it. We thought it was going to be more prominent in these schools, public schools, all schools, about understanding diversity. And these schools didn't allow it in as prominent as I thought they would have 10 years ago. What happened?
Well, another question to ask before that is what happened to two subjects that I know of that are rarely taught
at all. Yeah.
At all. One is Black history.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew it.
And two is civics.
Woo.
So
they're gone.
They're really gone. So So, and that's shocking. So again, young people come out and they're not equipped with the depth of knowledge that will help them to understand and shape the world the way it should be shaped. They don't necessarily have the civic understanding to understand why our government works and why it should work and why you should vote and all those kind of things. So that's a deficit for a lot of our young people. So I'm just focused on that and not necessarily some of the other deficit areas that we have in education. And that's another area. I mean, so much money goes toward education. Oh, billions and billions of dollars. And yet we have a lot of our young people, bright, energetic, lots of potential. But when it comes to leadership skills, that's a deficit. When it comes to understanding, again, the mechanisms of how our country works and how politics are involved in everything, that's a deficit. And then all people understanding the importance, and I brought up Black history because it is so significant with our country's history.
Yeah. Do you think, because I don't think they're missing the thing. I think obviously they're doing this on purpose. They're teaching our kids to be what you call a prison system. So they just want them to do, not learn, never have to ask, don't understand conflict resolution. So they remove those things to take away, because again, I'm a brain neuroscience guy. If you take away those pieces of learning history, ethics, you actually take away the hemisphere of the brain that is creative also, that has you to do conflict resolution. So those little pieces are just stripped away off of your what you call cognitive skills. So now you have that worker in front of you that is really just a drone. And if they don't act right, then you move them into the other part of society, and that's the society that's driving them into the jails, driving them into the medicine and all these medications to take from all these other words that people are using. I don't want to use them because I think they're nasty words. So.
Yeah. There's another piece, too. Even with people who are lifelong workers within an organization, nonprofit or for-profit, doesn't matter. What I observe and what I find really interesting, and you'll probably understand this because of the work that you do, Dr. Paul, is when you have a person who is slotted in a job and they are specifically focused on a job and they're doing that particular job, and in the case of, let's say, their computer freezes up and they don't know how to fix it, then they are trained to pick up the phone and call IT, and IT comes and fixes the computer. So that robs them of knowing how to troubleshoot.
Yeah.
Now, I troubleshoot all the time because I'm an entrepreneur. You do too.
Yeah.
So the troubleshooting keeps you sharp and helps you to find innovative new ideas and new ways of doing things so that you can obviously become more proactive and productive. I believe that companies need to focus on that and figure out ways where troubleshooting, problem solving, and creative innovation can be built into every job, regardless of what that job is. And I'm not saying that people have to run companies by themselves. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
But that innovation is so lost by so many people. So when they leave a company, and I see this a lot, they leave a company and you ask them to do something, they're like a deer in headlights. They don't know how to do it.
No.
They've been working for a company for years, and they've never developed a breadth or portfolio of skills that can make them versatile in many different areas. That's another show.
That is a whole other show.
It is related to diversity.
Because everything is so socially, emotionally connected. And it affects us so much also on the physical level. We have so much sicknesses that I believe that is connected because we are so turned around on our brain and what we are fighting against and what we're fighting for, that we have no unity, and it's causing this crumbling issue. And I'm so glad that you're out there you're putting we call foot on the ground, you're putting your mouth to work, you're putting your brain and your love and your passion to work, So I want to say God bless and thank you, Carole Thomas Copeland.
Thank you, Dr. Paul.
Yes.
Thank you much.
And thank you so much for coming on Bridges Live. We'll be in contact again, and I just thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.